Hey there, what's going on? And thank you for tuning into episode 99 of the While We Were Working show. This show is all about the community of people who empower everyone to show up and be their best self at work. And speaking of at work, I am your co-host here, Joey Price, a founder of Jumpstart. And as always, I'm joined with my awesome co-host, Summer Ketron, who's our consulting practice manager here. We've got a fun show. We're going to talk about, of all things, Taylor Swift and how she might be the CEO of the year. And we'll switch gears, kind of have a fun episode and a serious piece too. We're going to talk about HR's role when there is war breaking out across the globe. Maybe some of the things that you should be seeing from your HR department or from those leaders who take on HR responsibilities without having HR department. So, Summer, are you ready to get into it?
I'm ready, Joey. You know me. I could not be more excited to talk about Mrs. Swift. I'm a huge fan myself, and certainly she's had a stellar year. So I think it makes for a great topic of discussion for today's show.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So while we were working, it's our segment where we talk about trends, articles, news updates that you may not have been able to pay attention to. Why? Because you were so busy working. And now I know you have not been so busy working that you have no idea who Taylor Swift is or what kind of year she's had. But we found this interesting article from Inc.com written by James Rake. And he says, Taylor Swift is CEO of the year. Here's why. Now, I'm not going to start this off because Summer is the biggest Taylor Swift fan that I know. So, Summer, what stood out to you in this article? Why is Taylor the CEO of the year?
Oh my gosh, Joey, I could not be more excited than to find a way to integrate talking about my girl Taylor in today's podcast. And you know, it's not only been a stellar career, but it's been a phenomenal year for T Swift and her Swifties. I mean, first, you have her hugely successful tour that actually got extended. You have a massive box office success that's also broken records. Plus, who could ignore that she also has a pretty famous boyfriend right now? But
Right.
I think beyond all of this, Joey, you can't argue that she is a phenomenal, successful business person, and she just didn't get there by accident. And so I thought this was a really cool article. Taylor Swift being CEO of the year and why was a really great discussion topic because, we focus on leadership and inspiring others. And I mean, what a better, comparison or what a better story to kind of talk about.
Yeah. Taylor's having a year of years. I mean, I can't deny that she's just had win after win after win. And I remember in, I believe it was April when her Eras tour sort of kicked off, I had the pleasure of hosting a keynote or delivering a keynote for our friends at Paycor. And one of the prizes was a giveaway of some Taylor Swift tickets to the show in Cincinnati. And it was so cool. I got to actually embed Taylor Swift and artificial intelligence and future of work all in one keynote. So Taylor is winning all around in all the areas that I care about: HR, music, the NFL. So she's even winning in sports. So I think from a brand recognition perspective, no one's doing it. No one's doing it like Taylor. And I've got some other things too that I could talk about. Sort of just how I think she's just winning in general. Because when you think about Taylor as a CEO, right, I'd like to think about her leadership style because the way she manages her brand and her music rights and her public image, she's got not only the Swifties, but she's got a pretty strong leadership acumen of the Swiftie brand and of the Eras tour. going on to gross, in the billions of dollars. And uh, even the Fed has talked about the economic impact of Taylor Swift and her tour. And that is a very significant thing. I think the other thing too is just she has this Eras tour, right? And Summer, correct me if I'm wrong, but with that, she's been able to adapt her music to meet the times, the trends, maybe looking back at her life and just kind of the style of music that's happening now. I mean, she famously, had some collabs with groups that were big or singers that were big in the mid 2010s. But now this year I saw her on stage with Ice Spice. And so, she's adaptable, right? She's staying relevant. She's got a pulse on who are the hot artists and who should have the privilege of being on her stage. And so I just think it's pretty cool that she is definitely a role model for women uh, as a father, but also just all of us. Quite frankly, she's doing a lot of things right, and we could all learn a lot from her. So I think that the author of this article is onto something, and Taylor's really onto something too. She's killing it.
Yes, I think kind of taking us back a little bit to some of the article, Joey, the the kind of overarching message is when it comes to Taylor, she has always had a purpose that has driven her decisions, that has driven her life and her career. And, even if you kind of go back to some of the interviews from when she was very, very young, her purpose was, ultimately to find her place in the world. And like, how relatable of a purpose is that, right? Like, I feel like as we're all growing up, we're all kind of going through that discovery. And, as she's coming up in her career and as she's growing, she has helped to empower others to better understand their lives and their purpose. And when, you think about the responsibilities of a CEO, and, how to make those connections, Taylor has such a deep connection to her fan base. And, when we communicate our personal stories, and that's exactly what Taylor does through her music to her fans, she is building that engagement. She is building that shared purpose. And, there's no doubt that when you reach those levels of engagement, whether it's with your fan base or with your team, you're now, fully engaged, driven towards the same purpose. And that is, ultimately, as a leader, what we aim to achieve. So, I think the article says it well, and it mentions that, communicating our personal stories and lessons, it is essential to building engagement and that shared purpose at work. And then it also goes on to share some advice that I agree with, which is, if you're a leader, a CEO trying to lead disengaged employees, live your purpose in a manner that brings value to your employees' purpose. And, if you're an employee and your purpose doesn't fit with your current work, like, it's really important to find another situation where it does.
Yeah.
To me, that was a really powerful message. And I think it kind of goes back to the very, very, very beginning and kind of the center of everything that is Taylor Swift worthy of being CEO of the year.
Yeah, and I mean, you use a word that more and more employees are tapping into these days, and that's purpose, right? And so, if you are listening to this or watching, and you're like, "How do I help people tap into their purpose?" You got to look at developing really good relationships with your team, and being able to have that trust where if you ask them, "Hey, what's your purpose?" or "What do you enjoy about working here?" they'll give you an honest answer. Honest to say that they love it, and maybe honest to say that they don't. So I think we can learn a lot from Miss Swift, and the book is still being written on her impact on music, business, culture. So, my hat goes off to Taylor Swift, and to the Swifties. And, I feel like one day we've got to do a course on like Taylor Swift's CEO style and how it'll help improve engagement. I don't know. I'm just thinking. But this has been a fun topic. Summer, you have any closing words you want to share on this or no?
No, I think it was, kind of a cool topic to pull into, the situations and really discussions that we have here with organizations on a regular basis. And I think, as you mentioned, Joey, there's still the story's still being written. I think there will still be much to learn, but there's definitely been some takeaways for us. So yeah, so fun topic to chat about. And I know we've got a pretty serious topic coming up, and it's time for us to shift gears. But in the essence of being timely, I think it's important that we do talk about some of these difficult conversations that are coming up in our everyday work.
Yeah.
And also, the questions that I'm hearing from, friends, colleagues, and also from our listeners.
Yeah, and members of our community who might not have HR in their organization or just haven't quite worked with us yet, we do offer the skills to help make your brand more attractive and engaging and more swift, I should say. And we do that by way of subscription services, prepaid package hours, and even just you can pick up the phone and call us for a coaching call. So we've got a list of services that you can check out on our website and learn more about how we can help your brand stand out and succeed in this new world of work. All right, let's go ahead and switch gears. Let's jump into Consultants Corner. And if you have a question for us to tackle in a future Consultants Corner, reach out to us at hello@jumpstart-hr.com, and we would be more than happy to incorporate that in our next 99 episodes. So we've got a topic here that is, quite frankly, extremely polarizing. We won't specifically talk about the war in Israel between Hamas and the Israeli forces, because there's also the war in Ukraine between Russia and the Ukraine. And there are other conflicts and disagreements happening all across the globe. So as we are heading into, quite frankly, in the midst of a season of global conflict and unrest, we thought it would be a good idea to help you unpack what's HR's role in navigating crisis such as war and conflict. This is incredibly important because there are a few aspects to this, right? One is the fact that you may have a workforce or supply chain that can be impacted by conflict. You might have customers, and your employees may have loved ones who are in areas of conflict. You can have expansion goals in areas that might be facing conflict. So as much as we may like to think that our world is only, within the context of the United States, we are more connected to global partners, global friends, global supply chain than we might know. And so we have a few ideas that we want to share, and I'll let Summer share her ideas first, and then I will share some of mine, because we want to kind of give you some perspective on how to navigate HR's response to warfare in the world. So, Summer, what are some things that we should be thinking about when and if we find ourselves immersed in conflict?
Yes, thanks, Joey. And, no doubt this is a difficult topic. And I think that it's important for us to discuss on the show simply because as I'm talking with other leaders, I have heard that they have been struggling lately with trying to figure out what do they say, when do they say it, how much do they say, how little do they say. And I think we talked about it on a prior episode about like just kind of the overarching importance of organizations determining their messaging with, certain things that may happen in the world or in the news. And, I think this one we're going to be diving in a little more specific, relevant to, kind of the current climate, because what I'm finding is that organizations that maybe have taken a little bit of a quieter approach to these are at a point to where they're like, okay, like our employees are very clear. They expect us to say something. So what does that something look like in terms of a kind of a framework for these communications? I think, as you mentioned, Joey, first and foremost is identifying, do you have any staff or individuals within your organization who are in immediate danger, right? Certainly that needs to be the priority to making sure that those individuals are assisted immediately. Once you ensure that your team is safe and or there are plans to get them to safety, I think it's important to then communicate to the rest of your team that has been done, right? So they're not worried about their friends, their colleagues. But then also the first piece is getting out a message as soon as practically possible. I've seen companies do this extremely well, and I've seen others really struggle because there's several layers of internal, process that the messaging has to go through. And I recognize why that exists, but I also think there's, in these times, a little bit of a balance that needs to be had. So, balancing kind of the approval process with the need to expedite, I think is super important. And that's exactly what I'm hearing from employees right now.
Okay. Now, talk to me a little bit about kind of the practical side of things for employees who are working and feeling impacted in some way or another. Are there resources that employers can offer or are currently offering, but they might need to refresh
The
it?
organization.
Things like EAPs or mental health resources. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, sorry, Joey. Our video there was paused for a moment, but yes, depending on the organization, it there could be a variety of different options available to team members. But I think, first, I would encourage all organizations to, look at what type of support they have in place for their team members. And if they don't have something, to really be thinking about an EAP or providing some sort of mental health and or support programs, because team members need it. I think it's the world is not getting any easier to navigate. But beyond that, I would also mention making sure that team members are aware of your time off policies. And in some cases, organizations may even extend additional time off depending on the company. So I've seen recently some companies providing additional days off that they didn't originally have on their time off schedule. And it's for team members to kind of take a pause, to put mental health as, kind of the only thing that they need to worry about at this point in time. And then, kind of come back after a couple of days of really focusing on themselves to then pick up in, kind of what is the, kind of the next steps for them in coming back to work and, starting to move forward in a way that feels a little bit better to them. But it's really identifying what your team members need and doing your best to try to meet their needs. And it can vary depending on your workforce. So it's important to, kind of keep your ears close to the ground and talk to team members to understand what that is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's team members. It's team members who may be thinking about their family members, whether it's family members in a crisis, in a conflict area, or even, gosh, if you have a a team member whose son or daughter comes home and is like, "Hey, what is going on?" And now your team member is like, "Well, I've got to explain global conflict to my child." That can weigh on people, and so it's important to make sure that you have these resources and you're chatting and building and having that trusting relationship where at the end of the day, you said it with point one, is that mental health is the most important aspect of this, making sure people have the psychological safety and have a clear mind to move forward in engaging with this topic in a healthy way, but also maintaining their responsibilities to your organization. And so it's a bit of a give and take that you should have. Another thing is to stay close to developing news, right? So realizing that at a moment's notice, something can come out from a politician or from social media even. And that's not to say to stay glued to your phone or glued to the TV. I think it actually would be a little unhealthy to just focus on the 24/7 news cycle, but definitely make sure that you're aware of the latest that's happening. And so maybe that's scheduling alerts from news outlets that you trust, social sites that share news that you trust, but just having a way to uh, be caught up on the latest.
Yes, I do think that's really important because just as we emphasized the necessity to respond swiftly to initial messaging, the same applies for anything significant that may occur after the fact. So it's kind of like, almost somewhat of a restart in that regard. I think one of the other items, Joey, that I felt was really important in these situations is to find a way that feels appropriate to simply remind team members of the, organization's commitment to uh, prevent harassment and discrimination. Because, when it comes to different countries at war, it can sometimes become a tense issue between individuals of different groups, and that can become an issue at work. So I think, just kind of reminding individuals of the company's commitment and what's not permitted is important to, helping those that may feel like they are a potential target, that the company doesn't allow it and is prepared to take action if that is occurring.
Yeah, and honestly, that type of leadership starts with having role models in the organization. I was going to say, executive leaders, but really and truly at all levels, having individuals who will reinforce that message of anti-harassment and zero tolerance for discrimination. It's totally understandable that if you are tied in some way to a conflict that is happening and there is a other side, right? It's very, very understandable to have the emotions and feelings that come about because of that. I would just say, in addition to those feelings, which are real and I would never tell you to avoid, think about how we show up at work and how our words and actions can have ripple effects beyond the conflict, and it could impact the relationships we have with team members who may have family members experiencing the other side of a conflict. And so, to the degree that you are able to be a role model, I think is super important. If you are struggling with that, you should reach out to HR, reach out to help. We are able to provide those services if you do not have that ready on your team. But if you do, it's incredibly important to tap into that type of support. No one's a hero, no one's a role model all by themselves, and so it does take a little help to process things. But with that being said, too, I want to sort of just recap maybe some main takeaways for HR's response to warfare in the world. So we had mentioned communication, making sure that HR's proactively communicating with employees and expressing sympathy and empathy and sharing updates. It's important to have safety protocols. So, with respect to, for example, if you travel in or through or around areas of conflict, what are the best practices for navigating that? And maybe, quite frankly, canceling plans or ensuring people can evacuate safely. Summer mentioned mental health support, by way of EAPs and health benefits. So, recognize that the situation can be traumatic and ensure that you have access to counseling services or mental health supports for employees who could be affected directly or indirectly. Part of that too was flexible working arrangements, if possible and necessary, offering flexible work arrangements such as remote work or adjusted hours for employees who might be impacted or feel unsafe commuting. We have seen in cities across the U.S. there have been protests or demonstrations, and not everyone feels safe riding public transportation or commuting through streets during those times. So making sure that you're offering those arrangements, making sure you stay informed. So following the latest news and updates to ensure that you can make the best decisions with the latest information. And we ended with avoiding discrimination. So making sure that your team is clear on its anti-harassment and anti-discrimination policies. But another thing that we would add and maybe consider is training and workshops. So maybe you should think about considering organizing workshops on conflict resolution, stress management, cultural sensitivity, so that your employees are equipped to navigate these challenging times with new skills. We offer DEI coaching. We offer cultural sensitivity training. We offer DISC assessment to help your employees understand how to best communicate with one another. And so we are a resource for your team. And these are some of the things that you should be looking for from your HR team, or whether they're in the office or a partner like ours, to help take your company to the next level in the midst of crisis. So we had a great episode today. On one end, celebrating, the icon that is Taylor Swift. And then we also talked about the importance of having a visible presence of HR in times of conflict and tension. So this has been a great episode. Summer, as always, thanks for your partnership in this and making sure it's a great episode, time in and time out. And until next time, we'll see you later. Have a great week.
Thank you.